Recording has started. Okay, what's up, guys? Nuggets Wave is back. We are joined today, Peter and myself. You can find me online at Ray Vaughn Hagshaw. You can find Peter at Bucket since '88. Joined by CT Phasio 24 on the interwebs. Coach, thought giver, scout. What's going on?
Appreciate the intro there. That's a kind introduction. But no, doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys. Always great coming on for with you guys. So happy to be back and to discuss where we're at in the Nugget season.
Awesome. Glad to have you. So to jump into things, I feel like we're in a good. I don't know about you guys. I'm feeling pretty good about myself lately. Feel pretty good about the team. You know, things we've been down. We've been down for a minute. Okay, a lot has happened. We've lost a lot in 2025, but it's 2026, and we're taking the punches. We're rolling. We're dodging. We're weaving. We're hitting back. Okay, the Nuggets are fucking back. That's what I'm saying. Um, I feel like we're a really deep team. That's where I want to start, and nowhere can I really shine that spotlight more has been one number 8, Peyton Watson. So I guess CTs we haven't spoken to you in a while. Before we sully the waters with our own takes, leave it pristine for you. How, maybe compared to how you felt about him coming out of the draft and going into this season, have you felt about Peyton, and how has his play this year changed that in your mind?
Yeah. So going back to the draft, that was the 2022 draft. Same draft that the Nuggets drafted Christian Brown as well. That during that kind of period, I had Peyton as a top 60 player on my board, but was kind of just like a throw in on my board, kind of at the end as like a upside guy, flyer. That, if he hit, I think would obviously warrant being included within, the top 60 of, of a board and maybe higher. But, obviously he was a very raw prospect, only averaged 3 points per game at UCLA. Famously didn't really play too many, minutes, got minutes sparingly, hit or miss kind of with the opportunity that was given to him. Pretty surprising considering he was a McDonald's All-American, pretty decorated high school player as well. Um, I think the biggest lesson here is that it just development takes a while for NBA rookies. Peyton basically had a redshirt year his first year in Denver, played a lot in the G League, um, and then obviously got a lot more minutes because the Nuggets really committed to that draft and develop plan. And I think now we're finally seeing Peyton blossom into, I think, the player that in high school you could see. He was a guy who was getting reps on the ball, was more of a creator type instead of like an off-ball wing as a play finisher. Showed some creation chops, ability to hit some mid-range jump shots and get to the paint a bit. And obviously the defense was a constant. As a guy who was a pretty good shot blocker for a wing, could play one-on-one defense at an exceptional level as well. But I think we're seeing this year, especially given with the injuries, I'm not sure if we'd actually have seen this Peyton Watson without the, domino of all the Nuggets wings that have went down. You look at Cam Johnson went down, Christian Brown went down. Murray has missed some games. I think there's been like opportunities for Peyton to be. Aaron Gordon went down as well. There's been opportunities for Payne to be put into the starting lineup, and he's really, really excelled in that role. As a guy who's taken on more usage, as a guy who can give the ball to and put it in his hands a bit and have him create, gets downhill. This is not like the Peyton Watson of the past few years that we've seen as a play finisher. This is someone who has really evolved within his role. And this summer we're going to see. It's the ultimate question, right? Is will the Nuggets actually pay for? I'm sure that's going to be the next segue here. But will the Nuggets actually pay to keep Peyton Watson, or will this basically, if they let him walk, I will say, will this development plan that they've committed to, will it be for nothing? Basically, that you just let him walk after he's shown this much promise this year. And obviously the playoffs are going to be a pretty big test for Peyton. I think last year was again more hit or miss in his minutes that he played off the bench, but this year is going to be a big test for how he does in the playoffs. But regular season, I have to say that he's really leveled up his game, and I think has changed kind of the trajectory of how the Nuggets calculus will approach moving forward.
Yeah, Peter, talking a little bit more about the playoffs. I mean, obviously, Peyton Watson has had a great season so far. Conference Player of the Month or for January, so shouts out to him. Every guy, I think, has their own challenges in the playoffs. What would you say his are going into this postseason? What does he really need to do to prove to you that he is the complete player he needs to be?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we've always said for years that development is not always linear. But when you're looking at a player based on how he played last year, you're looking for like certain things to get better. And we already did a whole pod like where I apologized about how wrong I was about Peyton Watson. But even that was only talking about like he's been doing better in his role, right? And what was his role? It was like sixth, seventh man off the bench, play some defense, get in transition, hit some shots. And now, as CT mentioned, with all the injuries, like he's been having to start. And like, what is the hardest thing to do in the NBA? And it's to scale up, right? Like, how many guys, with given more opportunity, can not only give you more production but give you that efficiency? I mean, he's been really consistent. What is he at, like 4 or 5 games in a row now of 20 points plus points?
Yeah, without
You know,
Jokic, he's 25, 7, and 2 within
yeah. I
7
mean,
games.
that's crazy,
50,
guys. Like, I
45
didn't.
right now.
If you would have given me the odds before the season on like that he could do that, I would have said like 10-1. And now maybe that's partially my fault for being so low on him, but like I did not see this coming, Ray. So to answer your question for playoffs, in a weird way, it's actually going to be like, assuming we have everybody healthy, can he scale back down? Like, and I'm not saying he needs to be like cut back to like 16 minutes a game or anything, but what we really need from him is defense, and playing off Jokic, because it's clear that he can do stuff with the ball. But when Cam Johnson's back, are they going to let Peyton run the offense? I don't know. Maybe Adelman will give him the ball a little more and give him more touches. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea. I think, as we all know, basketball's all about matchups. And sometimes if you have a guy you can cook, then, give him the rock. I don't think you should play the same style every single night because teams can prepare for you. So I could see it where a playoff series starts and he's not maybe the big part of like the offensive plan, but maybe as the series goes along, if Jamal gets taken out of series, if Cam gets taken out of series or something, maybe they say, hey, maybe let's see if Peyton can do more, and he's kind of gonna show them that trust the rest of this year. But with all the guys out, I mean, I feel like he's already starting to build that trust.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'd have to say, actually, CT, I have some thoughts about this, but I want to throw it back to you before I go ahead. Any thoughts about Peyton transitioning his game from what he's done in the regular season to the playoffs?
I mean, definitely, I think the shooting for sure. I have to check what he shot last year in the playoffs, but
36% from three. I've been saying it all year.
okay. So 36% from three is pretty good, but teams were
It's low
obviously just
volume.
low volume, right? Teams were obviously just willing to concede him to shoot and dare him, and they would say, well, if we take Murray away, Jokic away, obviously Mike was injured last year, Russ was injured last year, and you had AG playing the way he played. We're kind of just going to pick our poison and say, if Peyton gets up a three, we're just going to live with it. If he makes it, he makes it. If he misses, he misses. But that's, I think, the main thing is the shooting. But like we're seeing now, the slashing is completely different. If he can actually get 2 feet in the paint at a pretty sizable rate, I think that changes the calculus as far as Peyton Watson's offensive trajectory is concerned. Instead of him just Adelman, I think, has utilized Peyton in a different way than under Malone as well. I think we're seeing that. Malone used Peyton mainly as just a cutter, a dunker spot guy, not really initiating actions and what have you. We've seen that with Adelman. Like, he's actually initiating split actions at times. He's initiating matchup hunting as well, like going one-on-one and say, hey, we'll bring you into the action. Let's you go at him now and walk him down and try to get 2 feet in the paint. And if they collapse on you, then you kick it out for a pass. Like we've seen that over the past couple of games as well, where Watson's actually his passing has looked pretty good. He's not going to be like, Cade Cunningham, right, making reads out of pick and rolls all the time. But he is a guy that can make simple reads, as far as hitting the roll man or, other kinds of hitting the skip pass or what have you. But yeah, this is going to be a big playoffs for Peyton. But I think just the takeaway for me right now is that I just don't know how you can justify taking Peyton Watson out of the starting lineup with a fully healthy team.
It's funny that you say that because for me, for him going into the playoffs, one of the things I'm looking for is for him to. I see him as the fourth best Nugget. That's where I'm at with him. Whether he's starting or not, I want to see him closing games, and I think there are two particular things on the court from a tactical perspective. CT Peter, I don't know if either of you have been paying attention to. I don't want to say the demise of OKC. I think that's a little bit overblown, but as they've started to lose games and play more competitive teams, they have a couple weaknesses, I would say. One is that they're not great shooters. So is that a team that we can kind of smother back, kind of respond a little bit more when you're talking about Peyton and some of the other guys? We still have Christian, you still have Spencer Jones, you have Bruce Brown, you have Aaron Gordon still, you have all these guys. So do you have the numbers to be kind of match that physicality? But the other is one of what they did so well to Denver before, and what other teams have tried to do is isolate Jamal Murray and isolate Jokic out of play, so to speak, is to put two towards them and ask the other guys to beat you. Where we really struggled, I would say, with just Aaron in that secondary creation role. Can you then have Peyton on the court with the understanding that, like, okay, now between Peyton and maybe it's Aaron and Cam or Aaron and Christian, can Peyton or Aaron take on your fourth worst defender on the floor and create stuff for himself, create opportunities for others, even if he's not doing this in a super high volume? It would just do so much, I think, to unlock the rest of the team, and I think make playoff series, hopefully plural, much easier. And for me, that's it. And then maybe transition that into what could be like a bench role where maybe it's along with Aaron, maybe it's along with Cam. Can you guys carry some of this Jokic-less, sometimes Murray-less basketball trend into that context where now we have the Jokic Murray 2 game, but then even when they're not on the court, you have some amount of identity offensively. I think that's the challenge, which is and I know this is a big thing versus we talk about this a lot off the channel, but for me, for Christian, and maybe I just want him to shoot like 38% from three in the playoffs. That I would be ecstatic if he had the same playoffs as last year, but he just shot 38%, and he was just being a good floor spacer and that sort of thing. I guess the next question I would have is, CT, what do you think Peyton's ceiling is after all of this? We're going into an offseason where he's asking for an extension. I think before we can really even discuss what that number should be or what the range should be, is who do we think Peyton actually is?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Obviously I think his role is going to be scaled back now when Jokic returns, when Murray returns. I don't know if when Cam Johnson returns, I'm not sure, like, is he going to get phased out more than Cam Johnson? I'm not sure, because I don't know how the lineup's going to shake out. Is Cam Johnson going to return as a starter? I would probably assume yes. When Christian comes back, he's probably going to be your starter. So I would think that Peyton probably returns to the bench, at least to start when they all come back. But yeah, if we're talking about his ceiling, I think Peyton's probably in that mold of like a 2-3 guard, probably a pretty big 2 guard, and a pretty decently sized wing player as well. But if he's shooting, what's he shooting right now from three, around 40%. If he's knocking down anywhere from like 36 to 40% on decent volume and is able to show some kind of playmaking skill set, and able to, as far as initiate actions at times and hunt switches, I think that there's a pretty decent chance that he's going to end up as a starting 2 or 3 guard somewhere else, and probably I would say return somewhere around the range of Christian Brown money. Somewhere. I mean, I'm looking at the Lakers probably as an option. Unfortunately, as Nuggets fans don't want to hear it, but if we're just, I agree, Peter. But if we're just talking logical landing spots, that if Denver isn't going to pay him, I think they're definitely, they come to mind as like a first option, and especially since he signed with Clutch now. That's probably where my mind goes as far as potential landing spots for Payton. But I'd probably say around that Christian Brown range is where, if the production keeps up now, like I'm not sure. There's definitely going to be some slippage coming up with the return of other guys, but I think in this time frame that we've seen from Payton, like pretty substantial sample size of positive play for a team that's top three, top 4 in the West right now.
Peter, any thoughts on that, on Peyton's ceiling at all before we kind of transition to the next topic?
Wow, that's tough. I mean, CT's probably right about him going back to the bench and being in line for a Christian Brown like contract, but it's so hard to put a ceiling on Peyton now with how well he's played in this short amount of stretch with getting these many minutes. I mean, we're in some chats and, I've seen people throw around Paul George and I'm like, I mean, maybe if everything hits, but, even prime Paul George had a little bit tighter handle, a little bit stronger upper body. But, it's hard to come up with a perfect comparison, honestly. I mean, this is kind of funny one I thought about. Not, now, stick with me, not play style wise, but just like how good of a player he's become. Ceiling might be kind of like MPJ. I mean, he's having a breakout season in Brooklyn now. If Peyton's getting full time run, maybe he could average 25 somewhere. Peyton has gotten better with the handle, but he doesn't have like lead initiator handle. CT, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely don't think he's like a lead initiator type. He's definitely more of a off guard, like a 2-3 guard. Can initiate, I think, at times, especially playing with a playmaking big. But I think we've seen the flashes, and he's still really, still young in his NBA career, that I think he still has room for more upside.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it's a pretty loaded team now. And I've already been talking to people about like we gotta keep him, and people are like, well, would you like, who are you getting rid of if they can't make the money work? And I'm like, if I have to pick between Peyton Watson and Cam Johnson, like I'm taking Peyton. He's younger,
I'd agree.
he gets hurt less, and you can find shooting. You can't find elite athleticism, and the Nuggets need athleticism. They need defense. We've already seen, like, when we play these athletic teams like Houston, Minnesota, and OKC, which are basically the other 3 best teams in the West, like that's a disadvantage, right? Those teams can run on us. They're athletic, and Peyton's like our
Physical.
one guy who can kind of like go toe to toe with them in that area. If we lose him, we're just like a slow team again.
Yeah, that would the Paul George comp is interesting. Like a skinny Paul George, less strength but a little bit more shake to his game. I think that is an interesting comp. I might not be out on that as something that, I'm not saying because think about who Paul George is. As much as he's had, I think he's come into the league with more notoriety and has more fanfare about him, the
Right, he was top
commercials,
10
the
pick.
accolades, right, all that sort of thing. Most of his career, he's been like, when he was the first or second best player, he was probably a little miscast if you're trying to compete.
Yeah.
But when he's the third best player, you're like, actually, he's pretty damn good. one of the better third best players on most teams. And I could see that being, especially we talk a little bit about him developing. He's going to put on, as we all do as we age, a little bit more weight. Probably develop some of that strength, even if he loses some of the quickness. He's still so quick already that I think he'll be someone who can create paint touches. And I think that's when you talk about star players, I think that's one of the biggest requirements. Lots of guys can play extremely well off of things that have already been initiated, but guys who can create for themselves and create for others, I think that's like invaluable. Not and obviously the defensive upside is there as well as he applies it on both ends. So shout out to him, man. I'm so excited. He fucking hooping out here. That's great. It's great to see.